Okay, now let's talk about the SQL queries. Now, the SQL query that we write, it will be applied only on a table. So the main objective of the SQL query is to work on a table, either retrieve some data, insert data, update the data of the table, or even delete a row or multiple rows from a table. That's the only objective of the SQL queries that we apply on a table. So for instance, this is the table that we have created, and these are the data. The SQL queries will create on this data, either to insert new column, new row of data, update some data, like changing this name, or delete a row, entire row. So these are the objectives of the SQL queries. Now there are 5 types of queries: DDL, DCL, DQL, DML, TCL. The most used ones are the DQL, data query language, which is select. The select will retrieve the data from a table, and the data DML, data manipulation language, which either it will insert a new row of data, update a certain cell or a certain row, or delete a row, an entire row. These are the most used ones, the DQL and the DML. Now other ones, we can use them only at the beginning when we create a database. For instance, when we created a database, we used the create. We can use the drop only when we want to drop a database, like here, or when we drop a table. This will change the structure of the database. When we want to rename a table name, or alter, as we have seen here, when we altered the ownership, the ownership of this database was the default PostgreSQL role. Now we have altered the owner of this database, we made it another role. So here, this alter also changed the structure of the database. Same with grant and revoke. Grant and revoke, we use them generally with when we give permission to a role, like where we can do like this. So grant, create, user, these are permissions. Grant, create, usage, these are permissions. So we grant permissions to a role, or here we can do the alter schema login. So or we can revoke all permissions. We revoke them from one role. So these are the grant and revoke DCL, data control language, which consists of grant or revoke, and they are working only on the permissions of the roles. We can grant permissions to a role or revoke permissions from a role. The last one, which is transaction control language, the TCL, transaction control language. This, when we do like an insert, when we do an update or delete or select, actually these ones, the commit and the rollback, will work when with the DML, with the data manipulation language. When any changes in the data of one table happens, at the end of this changing, we need to commit these changes. We need to commit them, means we need to persist them in the database, in the table and in the database. The way to persist them is that at the end of the program, of our queries and our program, we need to say commit. In this case, whatever changes we have made using the insert, update, or delete will be committed, will be persisted in the database. If anything wrong happen, like when we have an exception or server stopped or whatever thing, we need to roll back. Any changes that we have made will not be persisted, and it will go back to its original value. That's the meaning of rollback. So if we have changed something here and one error happens, some error happens in the table, in the connection, in the server itself, then we have to stop the changes and roll them back to the original value it was here. Suppose that I have updated this value from Joseph to, let's say, Mike, and before committing the changes some error happened, any type of error. In this case I need to go back to Joseph, which is the original value, and this can be done by the rollback. So I need to put this rollback TCL in the program at the end of it in a try-catch loop, and I say if any exception happens, I would catch that exception by rolling back to the original values, and I will not commit the new values. This is the idea of the rollback. Now the save point is rarely used, which is like sometimes when you have in your computer, it's like you're going back to a previous version. So this is the meaning of the save point, but it's not being used in general. Now this is the entire SQL queries types that we can use. The most ones that we use and we will deal frequently is the DQL and the DML, and along with it the commit and rollback. These ones we use only when we do the creation of the database and the server and creating the roles, granting the roles permissions. Afterward it is not that much of use. The use will be with these SQL queries, with these keywords, the DQL and the DML. Okay, so now let's take one by one to talk about them. For an insert, when we want to insert a new row, now since we are using an auto increment, as we have talked about in the previous video, so any insert new row, it will take the next number. So if I now insert a new row, the ID will be 5 because of this auto increment. Okay, so now let's see how we can, what is the syntax of the insert query. Two keywords, insert into, and there is another keyword which is values. Here, or actually here, we type the name of the table with the schema, and then between brackets we mention any column that we want all the columns values in here. Whatever column in here we need to add in between brackets. So now we have 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, so we add 3 columns. Likewise, the values that we need to enter, it should be the same number with the number of the columns. So here we have 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we should add 4 values, each one consistent with its column. If you add 3 values, you will get an error, you will get an exception. Okay, so whatever number of columns you add here, you need to add values to it exactly the same. And this is the syntax: insert into, the table with the schema, the columns that you want to insert values, the values, this is a keyword, and then the values in between brackets. Now let's talk about the select, or actually let's talk about the delete and update, because they are very simple. The delete, the syntax of the delete query is delete from the table name with the schema, and then a keyword where, which is a clause, where clause, and then which row I want to delete. It is very important that you mention the where clause. If you don't mention this, if you don't write this, the entire data of the table will be erased, will be gone. So it's a very important point to notice at all times. When you want to delete something from a table, you have to add the where clause. And this where clause, you give it which row or maybe rows that you want to delete from that table. Otherwise, if you don't mention this condition, you just type this one, the entire data of the table will be gone, will be deleted. So make sure not to forget the where clause. Now in my case here, I want to delete the row which has a student ID with number 1, which is this one. So this row, this entire row will be deleted. Why? Because of this condition. I want to delete one row which has a student ID number 1. So this row will be deleted. This is about the delete. Now about the update is almost the same. The syntax is keyword, set, where clause. This is the syntax. Update, then the table name with the schema. Set. Now which column I want to update? Which column I want to update? It could be one column, it could be multiple column. If it's multiple column, then you just add a comma and mention the other column that you want to update. So I want to update the column of first name, so which means I want to update this column, but I don't want to update it, all of it, only the row where the student ID is 1, which means I had put a condition for the update. This is the condition, the where clause. Update to me this column where the student ID is 1, which means I want to update this cell. This cell only I want to update it. And I want to replace its value, Alice, by the value Janet. Okay? So again, be careful with the update, because if you don't put this condition, the entire column data, the entire column will be replaced with the value Janet. So Janet will be here and here and here and here. So it's a big problem, obviously. So don't forget the where clause. The syntax, update, the table with the schema, set the column that you want to update with what value. You can have multiple columns as well. Just add a comma and the other column name, and don't forget the where clause. Now you can have the where clause could be a complex of conditions, So update table, set, first name column, mentor, where. As you can see here, this is a very complex condition. It has two conditions. This one condition first, I will check it. So I will check this condition first. If it applies, very well. If it doesn't apply, then I will check with this condition, the second condition. If it applies, then it will apply. And I can do this with the OR keyword. This is a keyword with the OR keyword. So the first condition, I want to update the first name column, this column, with this value, where this comes the condition, the first condition, where the student ID is 1 and the first name is Alice. So here I have two conditions. The first student ID should be 1 and the first name is Alice. Obviously this is the cell that I want to update it with this value. Now what if here is not Alice? What if, let's say, Christy? It's not Alice, it's Christy. So when I come to this condition, it will not be applied. Why? Because yes, okay, the student ID is 1 here, but the first name is not Alice, it is Christy. So this condition will fail. In this case, I will skip this condition and I will go to the next condition. What is it? It's the student ID number 2 and the first name is Joseph. Okay, in this case, this condition will be true because the student ID is 2 and the first name is Joseph. In this case, what will happen? Joseph will be deleted and I will replace it with this value. That's what will happen. So the where clause will check the conditions one after the other using the OR clause. Okay, this is about the update DML. Now the select is one of the most important queries, SQL queries that you could have in your program. It is widely used, it's every time used, and it has a lot of options to be used with. For instance, I could select star. All the data of the table will be mentioned in here. Now I will not go through all these because there are very many of them, but I have mentioned to you how you can use the select. So the select is select from. These are the two keywords. Let's see, group by first name. Select first name column from the table name, group by st first name, which means I want these names to be grouped alphabetically. When you say group by, either it will be grouped alphabetically or numerically. Numerically means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like this. So if I do this select, you see this is what happened. Let's see another select. I want only the row that have first name with Alice. So let's do it again, this select. Here, let's go. I want only the row that contain a first name Alice. Only the row that contain first name Alice. So this is the row, the first name Alice. I could combine the conditions. Could be two conditions, not just one. So Alice and the age. Now we have two columns, first name, last name, and age. So I can do a combination of conditions, a combination. Select the first name from table where the first name is Alice and the age is 24. So let's see if we can get a result. You see, we don't get a result because there is no Alice which have an age of 24. And let's check it out again. Here Alice have an age of 25. There is no Alice have an age of 24. That's why we didn't get any result. Okay, now let's see another one. Also combination of conditions. Select first name from table where the age is above 20 and the first name start with the letter A capital. This is the meaning of like. The first letter start with A capital. Let's see what's the result. Okay, we have got a result. Why? If you look at it, Alice, the age above 20, this condition is correct. And also Alice start with the capital letter A. So that's why I have got a result. Now let's see what happened, and this is a very important point. What happened if I do the same query exactly, but not a capital, a small letter? Let's see the result. I didn't get any result. Why? In SQL is a case sensitive, which means Alice with capital letter A, it's not the same as Alice with small letter A. That's why when we applied this query we got a result, but when we applied this one we didn't get a result because Alice here is capital letter. Here I want Alice with or any first name with small letter. Alice here is capital letter, it's not small letter, so you have to give attention to this. SQL is a case sensitive language, so give attention to this thing. There is another one, distinct, another keyword which is distinct. You see here the last name. We have two, John with small j and John with capital J. Now I want to select the distinct. The distinct means any record which are the same with other record, don't show it, just show one record. In our case, John and John, I should mention only one record because two Johns here. The last name column, two John, John and John, in my opinion they are the same, right? So I will mention only one of them. That's the meaning of distinct. But let's see what is the result. You see I have got 4, not 3. Why? Again, the SQL is a case sensitive. John with capital J is not same as John with small letter J. So make sure of give attention to this point because this could give you a very different result. And there is a lot of conditions, If you go to the manuals, you can find a lot of conditions you can apply on any SQL query. A lot of conditions, but this is the general idea, is that the select, when you select, you will go through this table data and you start to retrieve the data based on the conditions that you have applied. That's it. Retrieving the data from a table based on conditions that you have applied. Retrieve first name, retrieve last name, or whatever data you want to retrieve, based on some conditions. These are the conditions that could be applied with the where clause. That's the whole thing about the SQL queries. Nothing more. It's very simple. It just requires some practice. That's it.